Hello everybody, and good afternoon, and welcome to another one of these. So yeah, I know, this one's not part of the Ogre series, but you know what? FFTA is one of those ones that I kind of grew up with as well, so I figured I'd go ahead and cover it while we're at it. Don't worry, it's completely nothing related to procrastinating on making a fail seal tier list, but anyway. So, moving on, once again, gotta start off with the old average, the old bar setter here. You know, the soldier guy is actually not bad. So the soldier is kind of the equivalent of like the knight or something, some such from FFT. Basically, they come with all the break moves, they come with all the armor equipping moves and whatever else. Come with first aid and stuff like that. So kind of like a mix of the squire and knight from FFT. I just feel like it's a way better balanced starting class across the board. It really does a good job of explaining a lot of the mechanics. They have a nice array of stuff that you get to learn from different equip slots. It's, you know, it's solid across the board. I like it. Not to mention their get-up makes no sense whatsoever. They're like wearing a sort of spandex coif kind of situation with a beret built into the top of it, but also a cape, but also chainmail on top of all that. It's weird. Anyway, they're doing everything backwards. But alright, next up on the list, we got Animists. I feel like they're probably an A. Solid buffs, solid damage. Pretty much good access to a lot of their skills fairly early. I mean, this is one of your starting classes, but it still does a really good job across the board. Next up, we got archers, but people archers, so human archers, kind of C tier. Not very amazing damage, but they've got a lot of good debuff skills and things like that. However, there's kind of an interesting combo that I feel puts archers in B tier, but potentially puts another one of their skills, or another thing they can combo up in S tier. But yeah, both same thing. Good shutdown abilities and things like that. Not amazing damage, but the Vieira's come out a little better. By the way, if you notice, all the Vieira faces are cut off. It's just the way that the tier list handles all images that go into it. So they all look like they're being a little bit sneaky because of their giant ears. Anyway. Next up for S tier, though, we got to talk about the Fencer. Combined with the Archer, this is probably my favorite combo in the game. So the Fencer, I'm putting in S tier not because it does amazing damage on its own or anything, but because the AI doesn't really... Well, okay, the AI doesn't know how to counter poison, and poison is also infinite. So, in a lot of cases, if you can't accomplish anything else, about 90% of the time, poison will solve that problem. If you combine a Fencer skill set onto an Archer, you suddenly have an Archer with poison arrows. You basically have a 50% chance to just end a unit outright at that point in most cases. So yeah, they don't do very much damage, but they, yeah, poison debuff, pretty busted. Actually, speaking of instant death, then we got to talk about Assassins. They literally just get an insta-death move. Pretty neat. Literally the Assassins from FFT, but I guess like 10% more balanced. They can occasionally miss-assassinate, so that's nice. Next up, we got the Black Mages here. Like solid general like offensive caster for B tier for the new Mao version. The Mughal version kind of goes in E tier. They're not amazing, but they still have access to all the same spells. It's just their stats are never quite built for that kind of thing. And the human mages, they get to languish in D tier. I just don't think they're very good at what they do. Some of the AI ones that have trained as a mage their whole life come out a little bit better, but it's really never because of the class itself. Next up, we got Elementalists here. Yeah, I feel like that's also an E tier. They've got some effective shutdown debuffs, but yeah, they really don't do much damage at all, and they're kind of at the mercy of a lot of the map to actually deal with the stuff that they have available to them. Think Geomancers, but a bit worse, but a bit faster. Anyway. Moving on, we got Gladiators up here in the A tier, solid damage, good elemental options. They can usually find a weakness to most things, and they're fairly bulky to boot, but they usually kill most of something, not something outright, like the current S tiers. Actually, next S tier is just Ritz in general, who kind of gets to use all of those skill sets while technically being a human character as well. Plus special character. Plus, they kind of had the better idea on how to handle the whole situation throughout the whole game anyway, because seriously, if you're in this world, why the hell would you want to leave? Especially when the alternative is basically all the kids going back to live in the ghetto. Nice. Anyway, let's see, next up we got A tier, basically human version of the Gladiator, except they do just raw physical damage across the board. They do have a lot of skills for all kinds of different situations, though, so they get to sit there. Next up we got the Tinker. F tier. This is a 50% chance to like buff or kill your entire team or the entire enemy team. It's just basically 50-50 shot of whether you want to screw yourself or potentially win. It doesn't even seem like you can keep re-rolling the fight to see if you can find a use for him. Realistically, in most cases, no. It's fun to play around with, but yeah. Actually, speaking of fun to play around with, but kind of too gimmicky for its own good, Blue Mage. They can learn a hell of a lot of good abilities. However, the only reasonable way you're going to get a hold of most of those abilities is essentially to use 2 other classes to both capture and then use the abilities of certain monster classes on this guy. Yeah. Like, on his own, pretty worthless, but they are fun to play with, and they look like a pirate, so there's that. Next up, we got Dragoons, barely better at a D tier here. They're somewhat strong, but spears aren't too amazing. Well, in this game anyway. Just in general, their moves are kind of, they would have their niche in a different game, not this one. It's just the whole T-shaped breath move thing, the whole jump move thing. It's just, it doesn't really do very well here, not to mention the side quest to get a hold of him is a pain in the neck, because more often than not, the guy will get himself killed before you can even do anything. Alright, next, we got Animists. Not Animists, what are these called again? They're like Beast Tamers or something like that. Solid damage. Basically, they're there to tame monsters for your corral, but surprisingly good physical fighters, so they get to stay in B tier. They're not as good as, you know, the Gladiator fighter, but still very solid. Next up, we got Bishops. Again, with the B tier, they're a hybrid class. They tend to support fairly well. They aren't too threatening on a lot of their attacks until they get stuff like Arrow, which not a lot of stuff can resist. So potentially just kind of semi-useful by default. They're a fun class to play around with. Also, for some reason, this one was referenced in War of the Visions, like the kind of crappy phone game. Very oddly specific, but whatever, it's there. Next up, we got Mughal Knights. I guess they gotta be an A. They're a pretty strong fighter class. They're pretty darn good. However, if you combine this, you can make an S tier out of Gunners, which on their own are fairly slow and not terribly amazing, but the fact that you can take Ultima Blade and fire it out of a gun is is kind of hilarious. That was kind of my go-to combo for the Mughal character in every party growing up. Alright, next up, we got Red Mages. Solid A, hybrid caster, double casting, you know, as you'd expect. Not super overpowering, but they got a lot of options. Next up, we got Ninjas. I feel like they're a C. Their debuffs kind of suck. Double attack is awesome. Just the class itself is kind of trash. You really only use it for the double attack ability, and then you immediately switch them over to something else. Next up, we got Summoners. Again, kind of feeling C tier on that one. They've got a lot of options. They're just not super good on their own, I feel. Yeah, especially compared to some of the other options that rabbits get. Alright, next we got Jugglers. This could be all over the place. But yeah, pretty much solid A tier. They can infinitely move across the map. They can use all kinds of bizarre debuffs nobody else gets access to. It's pretty cool. Let's see. Templars, B. They've got some good defensive moves. It's just they're kind of offensively not as amazing as you'd kind of hope. Really bulky class, so for whatever you need that for, that's right there. Next we've got the Morpher. I feel like that's also like the Animist here. They get monster abilities and whatever else. You gotta use the Monster Tamer to actually get souls for them to use. It's a whole thing. Anyway, so yeah. Pretty cool class and concept. They're how you make the Blue Mage work. But yeah, good stats. They're not awful. They're just a bit of a pain to get to. Next we got... Actually, wait a minute. Was that Templar? Oh, we got... Wait a minute. I'm mixing stuff up. Here. That is the Defender. This one's the Templar. Sorry. Yeah, Templar, also B tier. This one's the Bishop. This one's the Defender. This one's the Templar. Sorry. Anyway, but yeah. All of them are pretty much solid B tier. They're good at what they do. They're not amazing at what they do. They're basically a gimmick class. But still, a heavy spear unit. You know, I think just for that they automatically get to go to A tier. They look pretty dang cool. Put them up there. Next up, we got Human Illusionists. We're going to say C tier. They can be strong. They're not as crazy redonkulous as the new Mao version of the Illusionist. Basically, they're smart bomb. Thing is, human characters don't necessarily cast as well out of the gate. There are ways to make it work. The new Mao version, though, like, you can just turn them into a walking nuke. It's pretty cool. Next, we got Paladins. Basically, male version of the Defender, or, human version of the Defender. It's defensive. It's got a AoE burst move, so that's fun. Next we got Thieves. Mughal version I feel is like in D tier. They can steal stuff, that's all well and good. Stat-wise, they're kind of garbage, but they do get counter. Human version's slightly better at a C. They'll do okay in most situations. They're just not really going to be an upgrade to much of anything. You really just get them for the steal skills. Next up we got Hunters. Solid A, just because they get a anti-monster move, which definitely helps out in a lot of cases. Next up we got Snipers, easy S on that one. Ultima Bow is pretty nutso, but yeah, they like all their great bow abilities are pretty strong across the board. Warriors, another C tier, like not really too much to say. They're just a slightly stronger version than the Soldier. Really about it. Monks, though, I feel like are an E tier. They've got some cool moves and everything. They're like a garbage version of the Fighter. So, yeah, if you want to have terrible offensive stats, but technically some trick moves, that's there for you. Next up, we got the Priest Rabbits. Feel that's kind of a D. They just don't really heal as well as the other ones. Like, I would say probably a B for the healers, for the white mages, for the Nemaos, and for the dudes, maybe a C. I just don't feel like it combos as well for them because they've got so many other setups that can do better. Time mages, I just don't feel like they're as good in this game. Probably missed something, but I just don't feel like they're as good. And there's a human variant, I believe, as well. They would probably be a C tier, but apparently I don't have them on this list. D tier for this version. I just always remember them being just a pin cushion for the most part. Alright, next up we got Sages. Sages go in D just because maces are a bit of a pain to get a hold of. You don't really see too many of them around. And just in general, their skill set's kind of weird. Like, they've got good stats, they've got good potential on them, but they're very slow. I almost want to say they're this game's version of the Terror Knight from the Tactics Ogre remake. Granted, they came out in the opposite order, but you see what I'm going with here. Alright, next up we got Alchemists. I guess they're an A tier. They've got some good shutdown debuffs. They've got access to items and don't have to equip it as a secondary ability. So that's pretty neato. Actually, Azel, I feel, is kind of in the same general ballpark. However, he's got a better move that puts him up to S, arguably. You got Judge Master. I guess that's a little bit of a spoiler. You gotta beat the entire game to get him, and he's kind of just a gimmick unit. Next up, you got this dude. I think Ledner was his name. I mean, he's one of the end bosses, so yeah, of course he gets to go up there. Dude's literally invincible. And then you got Barbas, who's here. Like a bee. He's a good dog. Really nothing more to say about that. So yeah, this was just kind of a random impromptu tier list for this one. Let me know what you guys think. Curious what others will think about this one. And yeah, I guess it's time to stop procrastinating about that Fell Seal one, huh? Alright, I'll get on it. Later. Take care.